Most people don't even notice how strange it has become to simply be present. Picture this. Everyone around you is trying to capture a moment instead of actually living it, except one person who isn't reaching for a screen at all. They're not performing the experience. They're just in it. And somehow, that alone makes them stand out. We've normalized constant visibility to the point where opting out feels abnormal, but stepping away from social media isn't a sign of disconnection, it's often a sign of control. It means someone has chosen not to plug into a system that quietly shapes how people think, feel, and measure themselves. What separates these individuals isn't that they lack desire or emotion. It's that their sense of reward comes from somewhere else. Most people are conditioned to seek approval. Every notification, every reaction, every small burst of attention reinforces a loop. Post, wait, receive, repeat. That loop is powerful because it taps directly into the brain's reward system. It turns attention into currency and validation into a habit. But not everyone plays that game. Some people operate differently. Their sense of satisfaction isn't dependent on being seen. They don't need proof that something mattered, because the experience itself is already enough. Their brain isn't constantly scanning for feedback. It's grounded in the moment. That shift changes everything. When your sense of worth isn't tied to external reactions, you stop outsourcing your identity. You don't need consensus to feel confident. You don't need an audience to feel fulfilled. You become self-reinforcing instead of approval-dependent. And that's where the real divide starts to show. Because beneath the surface, social media isn't just about staying connected. It's built on comparison. Every scroll subtly invites you to evaluate your life against someone else's carefully edited version of reality. Not their struggles, not their uncertainty, just the polished result. And over time, that comparison distorts perception. You begin measuring your real life against curated fragments. You question your progress, your choices, even your value, based on incomplete information. It's a game you can't win, because you're competing against illusions. When you step away from that cycle, something quiet but powerful happens. The noise fades. The pressure to keep up disappears. And, in its place, there's clarity. Because you're no longer constantly being influenced by what everyone else is projecting. What researchers are now confirming is something people have been feeling for a while. Reducing exposure to these environments significantly improves mental well-being. Less comparison, less pressure, less distortion, more control. And that's the part most people overlook. Choosing not to engage isn't about missing out. It's about opting out of a system that benefits from your attention more than you do. The difference isn't small, it's fundamental. There's a clear pattern when you look at people who completely step away from social media. Not just limit it, but remove it entirely. They tend to feel calmer, more stable, and more satisfied with their lives. That's not accidental. It's what happens when you stop participating in a system built around constant comparison and unwinnable standards. Most people are unknowingly training their minds to depend on rapid stimulation, short bursts of novelty, endless scrolling, constant switching. It conditions the brain to expect reward every few seconds. Over time, that weakens your ability to focus. Your attention becomes fragmented. Sitting with a single idea, reading deeply, or even staying present in a conversation starts to feel difficult. People who stay off these platforms develop the opposite pattern. Their attention isn't constantly interrupted. They can think longer, concentrate deeper, and engage with things fully without needing external stimulation to keep them interested. That difference compounds over time. There's even neurological evidence behind this. When the brain is repeatedly exposed to high-frequency digital stimulation, the systems responsible for focus, decision-making, and self-control become less active. But when you remove that input, you're essentially strengthening those same systems through daily use. You're training discipline simply by how you choose to spend your attention. That said, not everyone who avoids social media is doing it from a place of strength. Some people stay away because they don't want to be judged. They're uncomfortable being visible. They avoid exposure, not because they've rejected the system, but because they fear participating in it. That's not independence, it's avoidance. So the real question isn't whether you're on social media or not, it's why. Are you choosing distance because it aligns with how you want to live? Or are you stepping back because you don't want to be seen? One comes from clarity, the other comes from fear. For those who make the decision consciously, there's a deeper realization behind it. They understand that what's presented as social interaction is often just curated performance. People aren't just sharing, they're shaping perception, managing impressions, and subtly competing for attention. Once you see that clearly, the appeal starts to fade. Because real connection doesn't happen through controlled snapshots. It happens in unfiltered moments, when nothing is edited, nothing is optimized, and nothing is performed. It's found in genuine presence, not presentation. And that shift changes how relationships are built. Instead of distributing attention across hundreds of weak connections, people who opt out tend to invest more deeply in a smaller circle. Fewer people, but stronger bonds. Less surface-level interaction, more meaningful engagement. It's not about having more connections, it's about having real ones. There's also a practical side that most people underestimate: time. The average person gives away hours every day to these platforms. Over a year, that turns into hundreds of hours spent consuming, reacting, and comparing. When you remove that habit, you don't just gain time, you regain control over where your life energy goes. And that, more than anything, is what separates the two groups. One is constantly pulled outward. The other is intentionally directed inward. When you really break it down, the cost isn't abstract. It's measurable. The average person gives up over a month of their life every year just consuming other people's experiences, not building anything, not reflecting, just watching. Remove that habit, and you don't just free up time, you reclaim agency. That time gets redirected into things that actually move your life forward. Thinking clearly, creating something meaningful, learning, or simply being present without needing to prove it to anyone. Most people today aren't fully anywhere. Their attention is split by default. Part of them is in the moment, but another part is waiting for a notification, a reaction, something external to pull them away. That constant division weakens presence. People who step away from that environment operate differently. When they're engaged with you, they're not distracted by a parallel digital layer. They're not mentally multitasking between reality and performance. Their attention is whole, and that changes the quality of every interaction. Yet somehow, this behavior is treated as unusual, as if staying connected requires a platform, as if relationships can't exist without being mediated by an app. That assumption falls apart quickly when you realize people built strong, lasting connections long before any of this existed. What these individuals understand is simple but overlooked. A moment doesn't need to be shared to matter. Its value isn't determined by visibility. It stands on its own. That same shift shows up strongly in creativity. When people stop creating for an audience, the work changes. It becomes more honest, more original. Instead of optimizing for reactions, they start expressing ideas without filtering them through trends or expectations. The result is often better, not because they're trying harder, but because they're no longer performing. Social media quietly turns everyday life into a presentation. You're not just experiencing things, you're packaging them, editing them, shaping how they'll be perceived. Over time, that mindset becomes automatic. Walking away from that resets something fundamental. You stop treating your life like content. You stop thinking in terms of audience. And in that shift, there's a kind of freedom most people haven't felt in a long time. Then there's the fear that keeps people locked in. The idea that if they step away, they'll miss something important. But most of what people are afraid of missing isn't meaningful. It's noise. Constant updates, low-value information, surface-level interactions, the things that actually matter, real opportunities, real relationships, don't depend on a feed to reach you. And underneath all of this is a harder truth. These platforms aren't neutral. They're designed to keep you engaged, and the most reliable way to do that is by triggering emotion, especially the kind that makes you question yourself. Comparison, insecurity, irritation, these states keep people coming back. When you remove yourself from that system, you're not just saving time. You're stepping out of an environment that subtly conditions you to feel like you're always falling behind. And once you're out of it, you start to realize how much of that pressure was never yours to begin with. When you're no longer surrounded by constant signals telling you to improve, compete, or measure up, something shifts internally. You stop chasing an ideal version of yourself and start accepting the one that already exists. There's no need to polish, present, or impress. You're simply allowed to be. And that kind of freedom is rare. There's also a difference in how life is remembered. When your attention is split between experiencing something and thinking about how it will be shared, the moment loses depth. Your focus isn't fully in it. You're observing yourself having the experience instead of actually living it. Over time, that weakens how those moments are stored and recalled. But when there's no pressure to capture or present anything, your attention stays where it belongs. The experience becomes complete. The memory becomes clearer because nothing pulled you out of it. This isn't about rejecting technology. The real issue isn't the tool, it's the relationship you have with it. At some point, everyone has to confront a simple question. Am I in control of this, or has it quietly taken control of me? Some people answer that question honestly and decide the trade-off isn't worth it. Not because they're superior or disconnected, but because they've evaluated the cost. Time, focus, mental energy. These are limited resources, and they've decided to spend them differently. That doesn't make their choice universally right, but it does make it intentional. If social media genuinely improves your life, there's no issue. The problem is when usage stops being a decision and becomes a reflex. When you're no longer choosing to engage, you're being pulled back in by design. The difference between those two states is everything. The people who step away aren't trying to prove a point. They've just placed a higher value on their attention than what they're being offered in return. And in an environment built to capture and monetize that attention, choosing to protect it is a meaningful act. If you ever feel pressured to explain that choice, you don't need a long justification. You don't owe anyone a philosophy. Living on your own terms doesn't require permission or validation. And the irony is this: what looks like absence from the outside is often deeper engagement with life itself. Because attention is your most valuable asset. Where you direct it shapes everything. Your thoughts, your experiences, your identity. Give it away carelessly, and your life starts to reflect that. Protect it, and you begin to reclaim control. So if this way of living resonates with you, understand what it actually represents. It's not withdrawal. It's alignment. Not missing out, just choosing differently. And in a world where so many people are caught in cycles they don't question, that level of awareness might be the most grounded way to live.